When the smarty pants of the Loud family stepped into Miranda's office, the first thing the psychologist noted that the 4-year-old's attitude, like always, the look on Lisa's face was almost unreadable, with the blank expression she was ever so famous of, and the doctor could immediately tell this wasn't any regular toddler. If anything, it reminded the Hispanic woman of a particular red-headed boy genius who also wore glasses. Judging by the expression you're giving, no doubt you are questioning unnaturally high IQ, Lisa stated as she climbed onto the lounging chair. How did you figure that out? By converting with the parental units and eldest sister, no doubt that my name will be brought up numerous times. Still, I expected that after Lori, you may want to talk to Lenny instead, the girl stated, her lisp quite eloquent in her speech, as this added to her little genius image. Well, let's just say the mention of child prodigy is spoken quite a few times. Well, I had to see it for myself, Miranda admitted. In that case, your curiosity is understandable. Lee, the doctor made a small side note of the notepad. Perspective. It seems that the family's mentions of Lisa being a genius wasn't an exaggeration. She looked back at the toddler. Now, Lisa, are you familiar with how these therapy sessions go? Aside from sharing one's inner thoughts and emotions, I do not know much about practices, unfortunately. Yes, that's part of it, but I do also need to inform you that if you wish to keep certain information private, I will hold it within for you. Understood. Now, is there anything bothering you today? Lisa let out a sigh. She brought a hand to her head. Quite a lot, to be frank. I believe it goes without questioning that, like the rest of my siblings and parents, I am too deeply troubled by the events that occurred our usual chaotic abode. Nothing like our house has been astronomically damaging before, and I fear the harm would have done is irreparable. Pretty sure the others feel the same way, Miranda thought. Now, this time, what is your take on the events that happened? Like my eldest sister and parents have stated, we investigated now our embarrassing sister fight protocol. When Lori and Lenny started fight over a rather expensive piece of fabric that only cost about $85.70, atrocious. I know, but it is a fact that two teenage females have a thing for shopping. During this entire spectacle, I was keeping track of the danger level. Things were calm for a while, but the little prodigy paused as she thought of her brother. She could still see the hurt on his face when he saw was getting beaten by herself and the rest of her siblings, followed by the fact that he looked as if he had seen a ghost and all of his siblings visited him yesterday. Tears welled up in Lisa's eyes as she remembered her brother almost dying from asphyxiation, followed by not so shocking news of phobia, or to at least her. She saved his life, but it wouldn't do anything now the newfound fear he had of her. Dying from expiration, followed by not so looking, of course. Lisa? Miranda asked, noticing the toddler's unresponsiveness. The doctor sat in silence, as Lisa was at the verge of crying. Seconds later, the doctor was met with water hose effects as Lisa sobbed all over her seat. I'm so sorry, Lincoln. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you like that. I shouldn't have let myself succumb to such an emotional response. She cried in a broken voice. Usually Miranda wouldn't interfere with someone crying during their sessions, but no matter how hard she tried to keep a blank face, when someone broke down, it definitely pulled her heartstrings when the person expressing grief as a small child, getting up from her seat, and she walked over to the whimpering genius and took a seat next to her, not caring about the soggy cushion. The doctor gently stroked Lisa's back with an affectionate mother. That's okay, Lisa. Let it all out. Lisa sniffled lightly and hugged the side of the psychologist. I still see the fear on his pain in his face every time I go to sleep. It's like an apparition that haunts me every time I close my eyes, and I usually don't believe in ghosts, but this is probably my punishment for my part of the fight. What did you do? I hit him a few times in the most sensitive area on a male. Lisa grabbed a few tissues, wiped her red eyes with them, while cleaning off her glasses. Doctor said those areas are bruised and that Lincoln would experience pain in his urethra and wherever he needs to use a lavatory for some duration. I've never felt so disgusted in my life. and that means I've lost a lot since my siblings may old odd studies are gross. Take it further to note the 4-year-old's appearance. Miranda saw that Lisa's eyes were surprisingly smaller than your average toddler's. She originally thought that the girls were much average size with a slight defect, but it turns out the glasses were magnified of their appearance only by 3. Definitely explained the need of them. The doctor suspected the little genius nearly blind without them. In comparison, Clyde's eyes were normal size, but it required eye wire due to the fact that he has trouble seeing objects further than 20 feet. And before you see anything, I know you're going to ask why I did it. The little Nancy pushed her glasses back on, and I had hoped I wanted to cripple his, production for years to come, okay? She yelled in outrage, almost as directed to herself. I was just angered by his idiocy, and I felt that he shouldn't have produced any offspring, as he ends up being challenged as it was. But if anyone's the idiot of this family, it's all me. Could have all this been avoided if I simply told Lincoln about our system, but instead I just told him he solved it by leaving the premises. Lisa even smart people make mistakes from time to time, but most fail to admit them. You're certainly showing that what you did and taking responsibility for your actions. I may be a genius, but after having the time to reflect on this, by having it solved my chemistry set and setting it in isolation, the only thing I think I'll be able to see it as I look for myself in the mirror as a psychopathic monster. Miranda frowned. Lisa, you're not a... Yes, I am. I know I have an autistic disorder that makes my intelligence inquinant that the fact that the scientists in their 30s, but I've been distant, stoic, and harsh words towards my own family. I'm done approximately 300 experiments so far in my whole short lifespan, and most of them were to satisfy my own very morbid curiosity. Countless times I've been used my own siblings as test subjects on these things that could cause potential harm or have irreversible side effects. I even tried to use Lily, my own 1-year-old sister, as a test subject just because she wouldn't understand what was happening. It didn't help that we shared the same room, and as a result of my constant experimentation on various chemicals and excrement that could be almost fatally toxic if not discarded quickly, I even created a creature entirely made out of trash for once, along with everyone oddly shaped creature proper guidance to tell me otherwise. My parents and siblings have scolded me from time to time again about doing such things, but did I ever listen? Lisa curled up on the chair, burying her head in her knees. I know my siblings sometimes wish they were smart as I was, but there's one thing I'm jealous about when it comes to them. They're normal. Even my older twin sisters are normal. While I have been cursed with this unnatural amount of brain power, I always told myself I don't have a room for social activities or express any form of emotion in my brain. That's as far as the truth may be the things are now. Did you find yourself lonely at times? The doctor questioned. The little girl nodded. I used to welcome isolation because it gave me more time to work on my studies, but after I received my punishment, I realized it was the lonely existence I've ever been living. Before you say, but you live in a house of 12 people, I hardly form of any sort of connection with my siblings. Miranda had been writing stuff down for the past few minutes. She shook her head at Lisa's last response. Sorry to say this, Lisa, but I don't think it's true. I'm sure you have plenty of good memories with your siblings, despite everything you've been through. Are you saying you virtually have nothing in common with them? Lisa searched her memories to prove the doctor wrong, still indulgent on her claim of having little to do with her siblings. None of the other kids had any interest in chemistry, the human body, or anything to deal with that mechanics. Lisa herself surely wasn't into sports, music, besides opera. She found comedy to be a waste of time. Thought, spirits, luck, and everything super intentionalist was a baloney due to her being a realist, and she often found Laurie's obsession with her phone to be irritating. She even found Lincoln's savvy comics to be subpar to her tastes. That was to be the first thing that crossed her mind, but it wasn't the only thing that came up. She came across fond memories she had of cataloged the most massive brains of hers as well. Lisa wouldn't admit it, but the toddler did enjoy tutoring her siblings on certain subjects. It was effectively one of those few ways she was close to them. She always liked spreading her knowledge. It was one of the reasons why she enjoyed teaching her job at college. Not only that, but she also cared for the very well being of her siblings. Her poop study was widely considered to be extremely disgusting, but Lisa was secretly keeping track of her sisters' and brothers' eating habits. Generally, a human would defecate about 1 to 3 times per day, such as she was concerned when Lori hadn't used the bathroom for a couple of days, to which meant something was wrong. She got her answer when the 17-year-old drank a 6-week-old milkshake, which of course the milk in the treat was spoiled, and it seemed that Lori had gastrointestinal blockage, which could have resulted in something worse while this gone unnoticed for too long. The toddler was quick to lecture Lori to eat healthier, and she wanted to less end up in the ER getting her stomach pumped. Then she came to the last time Royal Woods had a massive snowstorm. Originally she saw the inclement of the weather and an obstacle that got in the way of her siblings in their studies, such as she created special type of salt that would dissolve the snow and ice quicker rate that would get the roads back to drivable conditions. Plus, it was very dangerous to be walking around in ice in general, especially since not many know how to drive in such bad road conditions. Lisa knew fairly well of how often accidents could be fatal at times. Those days were forever gone, cemented into Lisa's mind, at least for the first time she could remember actually having fun with all of her siblings. She never knew playing in the snow could be a fun activity, seeing as she spent much of the time in the house, yet she enjoyed it, perhaps too much. While her plan to get her siblings to hate snow days worked to the degree, she secretly didn't want the fun to end. However, the constant could seeding the fact that the snow had piled up almost 4 feet and would have made going outside dangerous and elevator, and given that half the siblings barely reach over the aforementioned height, they had most likely got lost in the snow, or God forbid, end up with hypothermia. As such as Lisa had to put an end to the snowball frenzy, yet she still kept her launchers and her tank around. She hoped for the next snow day she would convince her siblings to participate in the full fun snowball war. Looks like I was wrong to make that claim. I guess I do have more in common with my siblings than I realize, despite our differences. And you haven't helped your siblings with numerous times with your smarts? That I have. I'm effectively the main reason Lynn is able to play so many sports. She failed all of her classes otherwise, although last Sunday she did say she had an issue with my lisp, something that I can't help, I might add. And Luna has come to me to help her couple times whenever she needed. The constant guitar riffs to make good background noise, block out the explosions that occur in the room from frequent basses, even though throughout her playing it gives me an extreme case of tetanus at times. Luann is the odd case, but I can assist she really needs it. I still don't like it when she goes completely unhinged on April Fools. For that reason, I've built a bomb shelter in our backyard. A bomb shelter? Is that necessary? Well, let's just say on one day she rigged prank in my room that nearly caused the house to explode. The dark sister, Lucy, I don't see her much in common, as she believes in luck and spirits and all that nonsense. Still can't fathom of how I actually believed in her when we visited Grand Vitrol State Park, but she means well. Perhaps the weirdest case of all was my sister Lenny. Being that I'm very smart and she's, well, I'll just say her lack of intelligence really vexes me at times. However, if I need help in testing something, she's always there for me, even when I used her in some harm in the past. Lisa stared at the floor in guilt. She knows that Lenny cares a lot about her appearance, like Lola does, and the 16-year-old has been subjected to quite a number of experiments that resulted in rather the odd look at best, the grotesque appearance at his worst. My other siblings, I'm not very close to. I realize that, but if I had to admit it, I would say Lincoln is possibly the only other sibling that's close to my level of intelligence. He seems to be careful planning of a lot of things, although he has been annoying habits thinking up of overly long names for his so-called operations. He once made the seating chart for the road trip figured out, where the best cushioned seat in the car was, and he said it took him 8 months to planning on figuring out. Something that I'm not surprised, but it's more than what I have seen my sisters. Unfortunately, his plan falls into pieces when the rest of us knew about it and tried to claim it for ourselves. Not only that, he's quite predictive in picking up when I've been trying to unknowingly test something on my sisters. Speaking of tests, why did you perform so many? Some of them are trying to find out better ways for the world. Like scientists would say, others, I'm just very curious as to what happens in certain conditions. Problem is, I get so caught up in my interest that I just can't help myself. I don't know any other reason for this other than the scientific purposes, and I feel disgusted as to myself for a result of constantly doing it for my own blood relatives. I just don't know whatever reason there could be. But I think I do, Miranda stated, causing the prodigy to look in confusion. Lisa, you know you're still 4 years old, right? Affirmative. Which means you're still a toddler, right? Affirmative. But where are you going with that? Wait a second. Lisa paused. The doctor smiled. Even though you're very smart and you're still a kid at heart, toddlers are very curious growing up. As much as they like to branch out and explore how the world works, what you're doing is the same way any other kid in your age would do, but on a greater scale. She put a hand on Lisa's shoulder. You aren't a monster by any means. While you might describe as a bit abnormal, but you're still trying to act like your age, the best you can. Lisa blinked for a moment, before looking at the ground and thought. Sometimes she felt like a woman trapped in the body of a child. But the truth was that she was still a child through, and while Lisa was a bit grateful that college allowed her teaching as she proved her worth, but they were still skeptical of her due to the massive age difference. But the time and time again, she would shoot down to those despised her, coming up with the complex solutions that would baffle the minds of scientific community. The child prodigy was still had connections high-end organizations such as NASA even. And yet, Lisa still had slept with stuffed animal, liked going to amusement parks, enjoying pools, secretly enjoying trips in the mall, and even found herself liking Dreamboat of all things. She's even had a small habit of studying small insects with a magnifying glass like most of her kids' age would do. While Miranda's words helped dispel the thoughts that previously she had, she still yearned for one thing. Dr. Lopez, how did one become normal? I wish to rid myself of my sociopathic tendencies. As far as being normal, I believe that you should try and get outside of your house more often. You spend a lot of time in the lab, which is fine for what you're interested in, but it seems like you aren't interacting much with anyone. Try attending social groups, hang out with friends, expressing yourself in your own way. Just being yourself would help. But don't try to be someone else that you aren't, and that usually leads to trouble. One thing I believe I could help you is opening your mind more. You say you're shy away from knowing and showing any emotion, but you are human, Lisa. Humans will express how they feel. You could be happy, sad, angry, upbeat, anything that shows that you're currently feeling. It also helps to try to do on a frequent basis. While some cases it may be true, it's not good to come off as being arrogant. Lisa nodded in agreement. She had been acting like a sob for a good amount of 3 to 4 hours life old. She might be smart, but she didn't necessarily make her a better person. The person at all. The child genius would have to fix things, and she really would have to make up for the massive apology of all the experimentations she had to have done to her family. With her brain power, that task that couldn't be too difficult. However, things are often easier said than done. As far as friends, Lisa would have to think really hard on the subject. Sure, she had some colleagues in the science department, but Dr. Lopez was hoping she'd meet someone within her age group, let alone be a series of trial and error. When Lisa was in preschool, she truly had any friends due to her dismissive attitude. Maybe her sisters could help with the task. Maybe Lincoln could definitely be of assistance, even if he gets over his phobia, that is. Feeling better? Lisa nodded. Thank you. I definitely have to work on if I want to become and have a decent social life. She was about to ask the doctor wanted to speak with another family member, but then she remembered Lori's words. Seeing that I'm the last person you'll probably be meeting today, when are you next available? I could pass the information to the rest of the family. My office is open around noon, but is there anything else you wanted to discuss? Negative. First thing on my mind right now is a huge apology. I need to tell my siblings for everything I've done. Lisa got up from the chair and strolled from the door. Again, thank you for your time, ma'am. Remember to take things slow, dear. Don't try and rush. And oh, before you leave, please tell your family that when they visit tomorrow, I like to see Lenny first.